It's 6 p.m. on a Monday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. Although North Korea's weekend missile launch ended in failure, analysts say the missiles were launched from a new location, a most noteworthy change. A memoir that details South Korea's decision to not vote for a UN resolution on North Korea's human rights record sets off a frenzy of controversy in the domestic political arena. Almost a third of university graduates are unable to land jobs in Korea. Those are figures not even seen in the late 1990s when the country was struggling to bounce back from the Asian financial crisis. Our starting point at this hour is North Korea's failed missile launch over the weekend. Regardless of the outcome, what's noteworthy is this. In the past, the Musudan missiles were launched off the southeastern coast, but this one was carried out in the northwest. Kim Hyun-bin has our top story.
North Korea launched a Musudan missile on Saturday, but it exploded shortly after takeoff. However, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff did not inform the public about the missile test until a day later, on Sunday, due to difficulties in analyzing the launch.
North Korea's missile failed in the initial stage. It took some time to analyze certain technical aspects of the launch.
The North has conducted 7 Musudan test launches so far. All but the most recent one were launched near the city of Wonsan on the southeast coast of the country. But Saturday's test took place in Kusong, Gyeongbuk-do province, which is near the Dongchang-ni long-range missile launch site.
There is a high possibility that the Musudan base is near the launch site, and that they launched a missile near there, keeping in mind the missile's operational capabilities and the most effective area of launch.
The Musudan missile has a range of up to 3,000 kilometers, putting the U.S. territory of GUAM within reach. But some experts say the Musudan could be launched at a high angle to target key South Korean military facilities and infrastructure. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
North Korea is responding to signs of attacks by Washington with the threat of a preemptive strike on the U.S. According to our Connie Kim, though Pyongyang refuses to back down from its provocations, Seoul and Washington aren't willing to take the heat off North Korea either.
A North Korean Foreign Ministry official has warned of additional nuclear tests and a preemptive strike on the U.S. if American nuclear forces mobilize against it. In an exclusive interview with NBC News on Sunday, Lee Yong-pil, the director of the North Korean Foreign Ministry's Institute for American Studies, made clear that the North will not step back from its nuclear ambitions as long as there's a nuclear threat from the U.S. He said Washington has nuclear weapons off of North Korea's coast, targeting the capital of Pyongyang and the North Korean leader. Lee stressed that a preemptive nuclear strike is not something the U.S. has a monopoly on, and warned that North Korea will strike first if it sees a threat from Washington and because the North has a technology. The official also warned that Pyongyang could carry out a 6th, 7th, or 8th nuclear test. These comments follow remarks made last week by U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell, who warned that Kim would, quote, immediately die if he decided to carry out a nuclear attack. In a sign the remarks may have hit a nerve, Pyongyang fired off a medium-range Musudan missile on Saturday, though the launch was not deemed a success. With tensions rising in the region, the defense chiefs from South Korea and the U.S. will meet for the annual security consultative meeting in Washington this week. The allies will reportedly focus on Washington's extended deterrence over South Korea, under which the U.S. has vowed to mobilize all of its military assets, both nuclear and conventional, to defend Seoul in a crisis. It'll be a packed week in Washington as South Korea's foreign and defense ministers will hold a 2+2 meeting with their U.S. counterparts to discuss additional ways to pressure North Korea. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Turning to the domestic political arena now, the ruling and the main opposition party are now sharply divided over an account in a recently released memoir. One excerpt says that Moon Jae-in, a potential presidential nominee for the main opposition party, asked North Korea for its opinion before a UN vote on human rights. Park Ji-won zooms in on the brewing political feud.
Former Foreign Minister Song Min-soon's account of a decision made during the Roh Moo-hyun administration has set off a firestorm in domestic politics. The account from his memoir released last week details South Korea's decision to abstain from 2007 vote on a UN resolution on North Korea's human rights record. According to Song, Moon Jae-in, who was the chief of staff to the late president at the time, proposed that South Korea ask for North Korea's opinion on the matter before voting. In the end, Seoul abstained from voting. Since the release of the memoir, the ruling Saenuri Party has lobbed harsh criticism at Moon and the opposition.
If it's true, it constitutes an abandonment of sovereignty and a breach of the law. We need to get to the bottom of this using every possible means, including a parliamentary investigation, hearing, and a special prosecutor.
Moon, the former chairman of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea and a presidential hopeful in 2017, and his party went on the attack.
They are once again politicizing inter-Korean issues to cover up various corruption allegations.
With the country in crisis, the Saenuri Party seems to have lost its senses. They're willing to defame our party's presidential candidate to cover up the Choi Soon-sil scandal.
Choi is under fire for allegedly using her personal ties to President Park Geun-hye to solicit donations for two foundations. The minor opposition People's Party also had a strong reaction to the unfolding controversy.
Has the Saenuri Party ever formed a task force on the corruption allegations surrounding people like Choi Soon-sil? The ruling party continues to make absurd remarks without doing what's necessary.
Two officials who participated in the 2007 meeting, former Unification Minister Lee Jae-jung and former NIS Director Kim Man-bok, have refuted Song's account. The former intelligence chief said Song should be indicted for leaking classified information. In response, Song repudiated them both, saying the truth never changes. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Let's turn our sights to the disappointing employment numbers in Korea. Even people with degrees from good schools are struggling to find work, largely because good quality and well-paying jobs are drying up amid the sluggish economy. Kim Min-ji takes a closer look at how the protracted economic slowdown in the nation is weighing on the job market.
In yet another signal that Korea's labor market is in dire straits, nearly 1 in 3 people who are currently out of work have a degree from a 4-year university or higher. According to Statistics Korea, the number of unemployed came to 985,000 in the third quarter of this year, while 315,000, or almost a third of the total, had graduate degrees. The figure is the highest since relevant data began to be compiled in 1999, and it's also the largest proportion of people with degrees who are out of work. Even in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis in 1999, the proportion of unemployed people with university degrees stood at only 12%. However, the figure has been on a steady climb since 2011, with the exception of a slight dip in 2014. Experts attribute the rise mainly to the country's high university entrance rate. The rate stood at almost 71% in 2014, the highest in the OECD. As a result, although there are more university graduates, there's a mismatch in employment due to a lack of quality jobs amid a sluggish economy. The overall jobless rate stood at 3.6% in September, the highest for that month in 11 years. The youth jobless rate came to 9.4%, also the highest monthly figure tallied since 1999. And in another reflection of the feeble job market, the number of people in Korea who work 17 hours or less a week hit a 5-year high in the third quarter this year. The figure stood at around 1.3 million in the July to September period, up 91,000 from a year ago. The rise was attributed in part to the government's push to offer flexible working hours for women who previously had difficulty finding work after giving birth or because of child-rearing responsibilities. Another reason cited was the weak economy, which has forced companies to hire more part-time workers than full-time employees. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Over in the United States, Donald Trump has turned his criticism of various players involved in the election toward the media now and the entire voting system. And his most diehard followers are still standing staunchly by his side. Kim Jong-soo has the full story.
Donald Trump over the weekend claimed that the entire U.S. voting system, as well as recent polls by the media, are, quote, rigged against him, raising concerns over whether he'd accept the results if he lost the election. Trump said on Twitter Saturday night that the election is, quote, being rigged by the media in a coordinated effort with the Clinton campaign by putting stories that never happened into the news. Trump doubled down on those claims Monday morning, adding that the supposed rigging is happening at polling places too. Some of Trump's supporters seem even more upset than the candidate himself. According to the Boston Globe, which covered a Saturday rally in New Hampshire, there was an overwhelming sense of, quote, anger and hostility among Trump supporters. The report cited an interview with a man named Dan Bowman, who said that he will start a rebellion if Clinton is elected president. The Boston Globe went on to interpret Trump's recent claims about the media colluding with Clinton as an attempt to rally his core supporters rather than try to appeal to new groups. In response to Trump's allegations, Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, said Trump is claiming the election is rigged because, quote, he knows he's losing. The polls conducted over the weekend show Clinton retaining a lead. A poll by the Wall Street Journal and NBC News released Sunday showed Clinton at 48% and Trump at 37%. But in another poll by the Washington Post and ABC News, Clinton led by just 4%, a statistically insignificant difference. It remains to be seen whether the fallout from Trump's lewd comments register in the polls, but with just 21 days to go until the election, many pundits believe the war of words will only intensify between the two camps. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
China has launched its manned spacecraft, the Shenzhou 11, into orbit. The rocket carrying 2 astronauts lifted off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in western China at 7:30 a.m. Monday local time. Less than 30 minutes afterwards, the Chinese authorities said everything had gone off as planned. The Shenzhou 11 will dock with the Tiangong 2 Space Lab on Tuesday, and the 2 astronauts will stay on board for 30 days, the longest stay in space by Chinese astronauts. They'll spend a month carrying out medical and space experiments. China's manned spaceflight program started in 1992, and through it, the country hopes to develop a permanent space station by the early 2020s. Iraq's prime minister has announced the start of a military offensive to retake Mosul, the country's second-largest city, from the Islamic State. EG1 has the latest in the ongoing battle against the extremist group.
The long-awaited operation to retake the Iraqi city of Mosul from the Islamic State group has begun. Iraqi Prime Minister al-Abadi has announced that the fight is now on after Iraqi government and allied forces fought off pockets of ISIS fighters on the outskirts of the city.
Our victory has arrived and operations for the liberation of Mosul have begun.
Backed by the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS, the Iraqi military and popular mobilization units, composed of some 40 militias, have been moving toward Mosul and preparing for this battle for more than 15 months. The Iraq-led forces took back the surrounding areas of the city one by one, including the town of Shirkat, blocking the militant group's supply and escape routes. The commander of the Combined Joint Task Force Operation, Lieutenant General Stephen Townsend, says more than 54,000 Iraqi troops are now tasked with recapturing Mosul. The Iraqi Air Forces dropped leaflets overnight, telling residents not to panic and to seal their doors and windows, warning the offensive was imminent. Mosul is Iraq's second-largest city and has been under ISIS control since June 2014. Mosul is significant as it is the group's last major stronghold in Iraq, and the loss of the city, according to Baghdad authorities, would effectively mean the defeat of ISIS in the country. There's an estimated 1.2 million civilians currently in Mosul, leading to concerns about the humanitarian impact on the city. 이지원, Arirang News.
Turning to a different story now, Seoul's most well-known Hanok Village is presenting a special exhibition this month. The beauty and simplicity of Korea's traditional houses harmoniously fused with modern art at Namsangol Hanok Village. Our Kim Ye-sung takes us there.
Namsangol Hanok Village, a cluster of traditional Korean houses built during the Joseon Dynasty, is one of the most visited tourist sites in Seoul. Here, tiled roofs stretch elegantly toward the sky and pillars create simple lines, offering a glimpse of how aristocrats and peasants once lived. Inside, the wooden maru floors keep the Hanok naturally cool in the summer, and there's a space between the floor and the ground for the underground heating system known as ondol, which keeps the single-story houses warm in the winter. It's the perfect weather for an outing, and this month the village is taking advantage of the season to offer visitors a special art exhibition.
We have placed 5 modern works of art in the Hanok to magnify the beauty of the Hanok and provide visitors with a more diverse experience.
In the courtyard, visitors are greeted by a 5-meter-tall white lotus statue that symbolizes creation and unity in an increasingly interconnected world. You can also find works of art in and outside the Hanok, like this one called Bring the Space. These blue feathers symbolize mystical power that transcends time and space, tradition, and modernity. As you take a closer look at the feathers, you can also see the structure of the pillars and hanji paper windows through which trees, flowers, and the mountain are visible, a truly panoramic view.
I compared these houses with Austrian houses, the buildings, the roofs, and with wood. So these houses are I'm very interested here in.
At the Yoon family house, fish swim under the crystal blue sky in another artwork hung from the rafters. The vibrant display adds a splash of color to the traditional house, attracting a crowd of children who look on in wonder. The exhibition at Namsangol Hanok Village is open to the public and continues through October 31st. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
And that's all from us if you're tuned in from outside of Korea, but we do have more domestic updates for viewers at home coming right up. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Devin Whiting with your in-depth domestic news. Korea's top policymaker has called on striking workers to return to their jobs, especially in view of the current economic conditions. Shin Se-min has the details.
A call to get back to work. Korea's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho Monday morning urged striking union members to return to their jobs, considering the factors that are hindering Korea's economic growth. Both the Korean Railway Workers Union and the Truckers Union are on strike, unhappy about the government's reform plans. The railway workers are protesting a plan to expand a merit-based pay system, which the workers claim will lead to firings. And the truckers are demanding the government scrap its plan to eliminate certain regulations in their industry that'll result in more cargo trucks on the road, and thus lower transport charges for them. As for the national budget for next year, the finance minister said with the parliamentary audit session nearing its end, the National Assembly will take up the budget bill next week. Minister Yoo said it's important that the budget plan gets passed on time to make sure it's effective. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Local drug manufacturer Hanmi Pharmaceutical was raided by prosecutors today over suspicions that it leaked confidential information that could be used for insider trading. Some 50 prosecutors and investigators from the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office seized documents, hard disks, and other potential evidence. The local drug maker is alleged to have leaked news that it was cutting short a licensing deal with Germany's Boehringer Ingelheim a day before the official announcement was made on September 30th. In an official statement, Hanmi apologized for causing public concern and said it will fully cooperate with the ongoing investigation. With oil prices stubbornly low, Korea's 2 biggest airlines will continue to waive fuel charges for international flights booked next month. It'll be the 15th consecutive month that both Korean Air and Asiana Airlines have dropped the fee. And this comes as the average price of the benchmark Singapore jet fuel, as measured from mid-September to mid-October, stood at around $1.37 per gallon. The fuel surcharge is imposed when it's at $1.50 or higher. The surcharge for domestic flights, however, will remain. That's around 96 cents. The pressure is on for the nation's high schoolers and other college hopefuls. There's just a month left until the make or break college entrance exam, which can be taken only once a year. So how are they getting ready for the big day? Our Lee Eun-shin takes us through the day of a typical high school senior.
At the break of dawn on a chilly autumn day, Kim Se-eun is busy getting ready for school. She has a strenuous day full of classes ahead, but can't forget the most important meal of the day. On her way to school, she tries to squeeze in a 10-minute nap.
Imagine spending 8 or more hours every day at this very desk, cramming for the big exam. All the while you're trying to figure out not just the field you want to major in at college, but also what you want to do for a living.
Like the other 600,000 high school seniors in Korea, Se-eun is preparing annual college entrance exam, now just 1 month away in November.
I try to study whenever I get a chance. I have a tutor who helps me focus on the subjects I'm not very confident about, and I often study with friends either at school late at night or at a cafe. I've been working hard throughout the years, and now I have an idea of what college I want to attend and what I want to study, so I want to do my best in November.
The test is often described as make it or break it test because not only is it the deciding factor in college admissions decisions, students have to wait a full year to take it again if they don't do it well. So the pressure is intense on Se-eun and her friends.
I'm getting nervous as it gets closer to the exam, but I'm so grateful I'm not alone. My classmates and friends motivate me when I feel exhausted and lonely.
Still, it's a stressful time because the year leading up to the test is known as the most difficult time in a student's secondary education.
At this point, it's important to stay positive and follow your usual study schedule rather than trying to do something dramatic, such as overcramming or cutting down on sleep.
Experts also say that while standardized tests matter, students should take heart and remember that they don't determine a person's worth. Yun-shin, Arirang News.
And those are some of the stories we're following right now. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.